Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition. We're going to talk about Superman, and we're going to talk about truth, justice, and the American way. All right, so recently, Superman, there was a big, huge change for Superman. Superman is now no longer an American supporter. Okay, he doesn't really care about the fictional character. Superman is abandoning his protection, his care, his love for the American people and for the nation of America. All right. So Disney, DC, they have some of the best. They have the best comic book character in the world, which is Batman, and they have, I would say, the second most famous comic book character in the world, which is Superman. I think he is the number two most famous. I think he's more famous than Spider-Man or any of the major characters from Captain America, from Marvel, right? But DC was very, DC, they have these incredible, comic book characters. And it seems like as a company, they really want to make sure that they get smaller, that they kind of shrink their importance, their cultural impact. They want to shrink the public's love of these characters. They want to make sure that people just care a lot less about Batman and Superman in both the, I would say, definitely in the comic book industry. They're just like making choices left and right to make sure that the following, the goodwill that people attach to these characters is really, really massively shrunk, right? I'm not sure why they're doing that, but I think it's undebatable that that's very much what they're doing. They're just, you look at what the choices they're making, and you're like, oh yeah, they're trying to shrink the market for these characters. Maybe they're like, Starbucks isn't cool anymore, like Latte Go-Go, which is a tiny little local place. They're so much cooler and like kind of niche and cool, and so maybe they're like, why don't we get rid of our like Starbucks level fame and make this like a little coffee shop that's on the corner of a small neighborhood, and there's like 3 of them and not 3,000 of them, right? So maybe that's why they're doing it. But one of the things they're doing right now is they're like, hey, Superman, his saying is truth, justice, and the American way, right? Now, why is Superman saying truth, justice, and the American way? Well, Superman is an American creation, right? Like, it was created by America, right? So, American created Superman, and America has brought up Superman, right? Well, DC's like, no more. Batman's love of America has ended, right? He doesn't care about America anymore. He cares about the world, right? He's not a nationalist, right? He doesn't care about the nation of America, right? And so they're like, his new saying is truth, justice, and a better tomorrow, which is massively lame, right? And as an American, I'm offended. Like, I really think that Superman, there's good reasons for Superman to say truth, justice, and the American way, right? Why? Why should Superman say truth, justice, and the American way? Well, his little spaceship crashed in America, right? And Martha Kent and Papa Kent, they raised him American, right? Like, America saved him. He was a refugee to America, and 2 American parents found him and raised him and gave him everything he needed to have a good life. They gave him his values, they gave him his strength, they gave him his control, both his emotional control and his physical control, right? And he's American, right? Like, so I think it's cool that he says truth, justice, and an American way. But that's over, okay? And right now, Superman really doesn't love America or love the American people or love the nation of America, right? He's more concerned with the world than he is with his homeland, right? Okay. Where does that put us for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, right? Because when we look at these things that are created in America, do they still identify as American? And I'm happy to say Dungeons & Dragons, this shocking, like, offense of what's happened with Superman makes me very thankful for what's happening with Dungeons & Dragons. Dungeons & Dragons is still very American, right? So first of all, Dungeons & Dragons was born in America. It was born in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. And if you haven't watched it yet, I highly suggest you go to Satine Phoenix has a absolutely beautiful video where she visits the home of Gary Gygax. She visits the very home where, he, was talking on a phone to David Arneson, and he was writing everything down, and David Arneson was doing nothing, and except, blathering on the other end. And Gary Gygax collected all of David Arneson's few little ideas and made it into something real. Because if it had been left to David Arneson, we'd have nothing today, right? Except all that would have happened is a few ideas in his head. Gary Gygax was the real driving motivation to create Dungeons & Dragons. He did the actual work. When pen had to, when typewriter had to, when keys on the keyboard, when keys on the typewriter had to, throw a hammer on the page, that was done by Gary, right? Like, none of the written material before the game existed ever came from Arneson. It was literally just puffs of, breath out of his mouth, a few words, and people are like, oh, he's half the game. He's not. Or like, okay. So basically, and also the basement where the games actually occurred it's really a big deal, right? And but that's in America. Now today, Dungeons & Dragons is headquartered in Seattle, in America, right? It's an American product, right? And the vast majority of all Dungeons & Dragons is printed in English, right? It is printed in a few other languages, but I've heard that the support for that is very marginal, right? It's not significant, right? And Dungeons & Dragons is bigger in America than it is in any other country, right? There isn't a country on the planet that plays more Dungeons & Dragons than America. So we built it, we supported it all the way up, right? We still have its headquarters. We still have the design team right here in America. Its primary language is still English, right? And actually, one of the things that's kind of interesting is Dungeons & Dragons is so powerful, right, and so sought after that many internationals will play Dungeons & Dragons in its native language using its native language books, and are increasing their own understanding of English for no other reason than to play Dungeons & Dragons. There aren't a ton of them, but there's a few of them, right? And also, get this, there are a few nations on the planet that do not allow Dungeons & Dragons to be openly played. They either directly disallow it or they indirectly disallow it, right? So Dungeons & Dragons is truly American, and one of the things, and I think when you talk about Dungeons & Dragons, they don't have a specific statement, right, that's saying truth, justice, in the American way. I think what they say is, what they're saying is dragon scales, goblins, and the American way. That's not said, officially, but I think their actions are saying it. And I am very, very, very thankful to Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast that have never allowed or even pursued its American connections to be disconnected, right? And I'm very thankful for that, to Hasbro and to Wizards of the Coast. Dungeons & Dragons is an American game. I'm an American. I'm incredibly proud of America, and I'm incredibly proud of Dungeons & Dragons, which is an American creation that continues to transform lives because it's not a game and it's a life path to this very day. All that's my opinion. What about you? Do you think DC is right and that they were right to disconnect Superman and make sure that everybody understood that Superman no longer loved American people, no longer loved America, and had a much more intense and direct support for the world rather than the place where he was born? Do you think that was right? And do you think Wizards of the Coast should go down that same very sad path? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.